How's it going, guys? Andrew here with Justified EDC, and I got a cool one here for you today. This is going to be kind of an overview and showing off a new piece from DC Blades and Shieldon Knives. This is the Shieldon Scythe XL. So this is the larger version of the Shieldon Scythe. If you remember, I had one of these on the channel earlier. It was a little bit smaller. It was a liner lock. It had some micarta scales on it. And had a satin blade. I have a full video on that a couple of days back on the channel, so if you're interested in that, definitely go check this out. But this was sent over to me from Tier 1 Gear Reviews, who is one of the co-owner of DC Blades. Him and Old Squirrel Knives over on Instagram designed this knife here, the Scythe. And this is being produced by Shieldon Knives over in China. So if you're interested in seeing the original version, definitely go check out my other video. But this is kind of just going to be like a product overview and kind of show this off. This is still a prototype. I believe this is kind of the final version as it's going to come. But he was kind enough to send this along for me to check out. This is not mine to keep or anything like this. I'm not paid to make this review. This is just getting passed around to a couple makers and influencers and stuff to kind of get some eyes on it. So as soon as this is done here, this will be getting sent along to someone else. But if you're interested, stick around for the rest of my thoughts. Before we get into anything else, we got to thank the sponsor of the channel, Auxiliary Manufacturing. Mike over at Auxiliary Manufacturing makes some awesome custom USA-made fixed blades like this pocket belly right here, which another drop is coming up very soon. And also these are dropping soon as well. This is his Sumi model. So if you're interested in either of these and a bunch of his other models, he's got a little bit of everything. He's got something I think everyone's going to like. So if you're interested in custom USA-made fixed blades made by hand, definitely go check him out. And thank you as always to him for sponsoring the channel. Another thing I'm going to bring in here to the channel, guys, is I'm going to start shouting out my own brand here. This is a G3D Printables. This is a business that I co-own doing 3D printing. We have a lot of different stuff. We got stuff like these EDC razor blade holders that this is mine, so it's got this old beat up rusty razor in it, but yours will not look like that. But you got stuff like this. This is our Occam's razor. We have NPE knives like the Lance. We have knife trainers for popular models like the CRK Tiyobaki that you can do training with. And then we have also things like our 3D printed knuckle dusters, like our jack-o'-lanterns and our cavi claws. You kind of like have a little Apache model here. You got a full 4-finger knuckle here. So if you're interested in anything like this, go check out G3D Printables. I will leave links to everything like that down in the description. And now that all the ads are out of the way, let's get back to the review. So this is the Shieldon Scythe XL. I'm going to go through everything as I always do. I'm going to give you sizes and specs and size comparisons, and then I'll kind of get into my thoughts here. So right off the bat, let's do some specs here. So overall length is sitting at right about under 7 inches. Your blade length, it's kind of hard to tell with the hawkbill recurve kind of thing going on here, but it's about 2.5 inches long. Sorry, I'm moving my mat around here a little bit. Your handle length, right up to the edge there, is right about 4 inches. Your grip area, I would say, kind of coming just to the end here, but you kind of can grip a little bit onto that flipper tab. You have about 4 inches of grip area. On the back here, about the same, kind of a little bit under, going onto the spine of the blade. This is made out of titanium, so you have a titanium frame lock. I'm assuming this is a titanium backspacer as well, because we'll get into the weight here. I'm assuming this is a titanium backspacer as well, milled backspacer, milled titanium pocket clip. You have the kind of like ball pocket clip design that you see on some of like Brian Ty's stuff, but this is actually, instead of a ball inset into the clip, it is actually machined out of the titanium. And then your blade here is a hawkbill pikal style blade made of S35VN, as you can see right there. There is DC Blades Maker's Mark, and there you go, there's the Scythe. So I'm calling it the Scythe XL just because it is a larger version of the Scythe. The blade marking there just says Scythe. I don't know if that will update with the actual finished product. But another change here from the original, not only is it titanium now, but this is a frame lock. The original was a liner lock. So if you're a fan of frame locks, you're going to like this. It does have a steel lock bar insert as well as an over travel stop, so you can't over travel that. So that is very nice. And then your deployment method here is a flipper that is designed very well. This is running on ball bearings, as you can see down the pivot. You might be able to see that there. But it is running on bearings. So there are your specs. Let's get you some size comparisons here. So I'll pull out some other popular folders. Here is the Spyderco Para 3. Get all this stuff lined up here for you. So actually not too dissimilar from the overall length of the Para 3. Here is a Kershaw Blur. Here is the CRJB Pyrite, very popular right now. Again, not too dissimilar in overall length. Here is a Buck 112. Let's see, what else should we do here? Here is a ProTech Emerson CQC7. So if you're familiar with either ProTech model or Emerson CQC7 model, same overall length. Here is a TRM Neutron. And we'll do some traditionals here, just for you traditional guys that are familiar with that kind of thing. Here is a Case Mini Trapper. Here is a Mini Copper Lock. And if you're not familiar with traditionals, you can completely ignore this part. And let's do one more here. Let's do the Lion Steel Roundhead. So that should give you a general size comparison between some popular designs. You know what, while I'm doing it, I'll throw in some fixed blades. Why not? You guys got time, right? You know my videos are a little bit long form. Here is a SE Azula 2. Here is a Knives by Nuge Wicket XL. And speaking of Knives by Nuge, let's pull out the Wicket, the original one, the small guy. Here is the regular Wicket. These are very popular knives at the moment, so you guys will probably recognize these. And let's see. Let's just do a fun one. For friends of the channel, you guys have seen this one before. Here is a Sosby 5-inch Cub. So that's a very silly comparison, but I wanted to throw it in there because I like showing that knife off. So it's my channel and I can do what I want. All right, so let's get into this here. So I kind of talked about in my last one, in my last video of the regular scythe of, I had some minor complaints about, it was a little small. And it's a flipper and it's not super quick to deploy. So if you're not really familiar with the pikal style blade and you haven't watched that other video, I'll kind of go over the idea here. So the idea with a pikal style blade, normally on a flipper or on a knife, when you hold the knife, you're kind of using in this forward grip where the edge is facing away from you. Same thing if you're holding it in a reverse grip, the edge is facing away from you. The idea with a pikal style knife is the edge is facing inward, and it's for styles of knife combatives like Piper or Libre, some Kali styles. Some Filipino martial arts have some very specific stylings where they use reverse edge. But I'd say Libre and Piper are the ones that popularized it. People like Ed Calderon really brought it to the forefront of a lot of people's minds. But it is very much this very animalistic stabbing and ripping kind of motion. The idea being the muscles in your shoulders and your back are much stronger pulling than they are pushing. So as opposed to doing things like slicing or cutting away from you, where you're using those pushing motions, you're stabbing and ripping. This is very popular with smaller knives. Smaller knives, usually with knives, in terms of knife combatives, you have something like, I'm going to bring this back out here once again because I can, something like larger blades here like this Sosby. The lethality of a blade is coming from the depth of penetration, so something like this, usually about 5 inches or longer, you're able to stab in and hit some vital organs and stuff like that through the ribs. But with smaller blades, you don't really have that option. And so, you talk about the difference between a switch and a timer, where a lot of things like, you're getting hit with a rifle caliber or a large blade or an impact weapon where you're hitting the head, that's a switch. You get an immediate response, the threat is immediately put down, versus a timer is, you're creating bleeding, but the threat is not going to go down right away. It's going to take a while for them to lose enough blood that they're going to be incapacitated. So the idea with a reverse edge knife is you can use a much smaller blade, but when you're stabbing and then ripping that wound open, you're creating a much larger wound channel, creating a lot more blood loss. Similarly, you're going to be targeting things like the face and the neck and things like that, or down towards the carotid artery or the femoral artery, where you're kind of targeting and trying to rip open arteries like that. So pretty pretty brutal stuff. I know YouTube's probably not going to like that. I don't even know if this is going to get monetized after what I just said there. But that's kind of the idea behind the pikal style blades. You see things like the Elvia from Ed's Manifesto, Ed Calderon, Emerson Knives. There's a bunch of different versions of the Elvia that kind of popularized it. But what I said about the Scythe in particular is while it doesn't have some of the features, like it's not a fixed blade, so you can't just grab it and go to work. It doesn't have a wave like some of the Emersons where it deploys right away out of the pocket. But what this has and what the smaller model has that a lot of those other things don't is they're very purpose-built, and they're sometimes a little rough around the edges. They're not flashy. They don't have a lot of the stylings that modern knife collectors want, whereas these knives do. And where I said in the other videos, this kind of bridges that gap between people who use knives as tools and weapons and just want a very straightforward working tool, and the people that collect and enjoy the kind of fine engineering of modern folders. So on knives like that, you don't have a lot of, the fidgety action and the nice materials. This you do, so you kind of get a little bit of the best of both worlds, and I say this really kind of bridges the gap and kind of brings people over into that knives can be tools and can be weapons and can be very useful, but you still have a lot of the features, like, you have a titanium frame lock, which I think even in today of kind of a lot of the wacky locking mechanisms out there, that's probably still one of the most popular is titanium frame locks. It's running on bearings, which a lot of people prefer over washers because, as you can see here, it's very fidget friendly. This actually you can kind of use this in multiple deployment methods. So really the only designed deployment method is the flipper tab here, which will say works very well. You can kind of light switch it. You can push button it. Both work very well. But because of the way the blade works here, where you kind of have that flat grind that goes down into the handle, you can kind of reverse flick this, where you kind of get your thumb or your middle finger nail on that edge bevel, and you can flick it out like that. Similarly, because you have so much blade above the handle here, you can thumb roll this out slowly. So you have some options. I'll just say that. I do kind of like the two-tone look of this. You got to have the satin or the stonewash titanium versus the black blade and hardware and everything like that. The pocket clip is really well done. I usually prefer like a folded style clip over the milled clips, but this is done well. There's clearance in there. I don't wear any crazy thick jeans or pants like 511s or anything silly like that. I just wear normal blue jeans. This comes out of the pocket just fine. I wouldn't mind a little bit more retention on the clip, but I haven't experienced it falling out or anything like that, so very minor nitpick. As I said here, they well thought out the lock. You have about, I'd say that's about 50% lockup, maybe a little bit over, but you do have that steel lock bar insert in there so that your titanium doesn't wear out, and you have an over travel stop so that you can't over bend that lock bar that stops it there. Similarly with the pocket clip, this is well designed where it's not resting on the lock bar, so you don't have to worry about lock bar tension when you're trying to close this, where the pocket clip is pushing on that lock bar. And the same thing here, you can kind of hold the clip with your fingers when you're doing that. I haven't had any problems with like putting too much pressure on the lock bar when I want to flip it. It's been working just fine. I do think there's some improvements on this model from the smaller one. Again, the smaller one appealed to a lot of people. You could fifth pocket carry this. This is a little bit larger, so I can actually get a full grip on this, and I can thumb cap it. So, if you're actually going to use this as a kind of a backup self-defense tool, you can get a full grip on this. You can thumb cap it to keep yourself from sliding forward on that blade. That flipper does kind of act as a guard. And I do really like how this flipper is designed. I don't usually like flippers on any kind of blades that I'm going to have to do reverse grip edge in, because they often kind of dig into your hand. But the way this one is kind of swept forward, and with the length of the handle, it sits very comfortably in there for my hand size. I wear medium-sized gloves. Some of you guys with like real big paws, you might have a little bit of a problem with this, but I'd say even there, you might just be able to kind of grip it like that. You might not be able to thumb cap it as well. Additionally, the backspacer on this one, and I can't remember, I think the other one was just like a flow-through design, but the backspacer on here is textured. You kind of have these milled spaces here that wrap all the way around to the top. That does give you some more grip in hand. It kind of holds the knife in place a little bit better. You have some jimping up here on the blade, which I think it's more just kind of design aesthetic to match the backspacer. I can't really see myself using this knife in a grip like this, and even so, I'm just kind of pushing my thumb forward on the back of the spine of that blade. The jimping isn't really functional here in my mind, more as it is just kind of continuing that milled pattern into the backspacer, which is fine. The knife looks really good. I think S35VN was a good choice. Again, this is a stainless, so the Cerakote on here is more of a aesthetic choice than it is functional. S35VN is going to be pretty corrosion resistant. And I think with how thin this tip gets, which I'm not going to go over kind of my preconceived notions about how that's going to hold up in the long run. Like I talked about that in the other one. The tip does get very, very thin. It is going to be good for penetration. But I think S35VN was a good choice on this because, one, for branding reasons, S35VN still carries a little bit weight of having that cool steel. But it does have a good balance of corrosion resistance, edge retention, and toughness. It's not going to hold an edge as long as your 20 CVs and your Magna Cuts and stuff like that, but it is going to hold an edge for a decent amount of time, and it is going to be decently tough for a stainless steel. So it's not going to be a 3V or anything like that, but it's a good all-around steel. And I think it's going to come in at probably a decent price range too. Having this be an import model and having a slightly older super steel, I think it's going to probably come in at a pretty decent price point. I don't know what the price is going to be on these yet. Again, these are not released yet, but I will leave links to their website and their Instagram and everything so you guys can watch for any kind of announcements. But yeah, I think this is a really cool continuation of the Scythe line. I would be much more willing to carry something like this than the smaller one because, again, I can get a full four-finger grip on it. It feels a little bit more like a purpose-built tool. One other thing I wanted to mention here, and this is the same as the other Scythe. If I do my tip test here, which on this channel, we line up the center of the handle, and then we see where the tip is ending. So this is above center line, which is good. For any of you who don't know, I do that for one. Again, having that tip kind of be center line helps you use it a little bit more for utility. It's easier to get to that tip. But also, if you're going to be using it in a defensive application, you want that tip center line or above. So if it's angled down like this, you see a lot of people design pikal knives where, like, if the handle was going like straight down from here, this is kind of the angle you're at. You can't stab with that. You're going to hit the edge of the, you're going to hit the spine of the knife. It's not going to penetrate very well. But this, having the tip orientation above that center line, you're going to be able to stab, where you imagine the tip is going to go is where the tip goes, and you're still going to get a lot of leverage from that hawkbill blade being able to rip backwards. So overall, I think this is still a cool design. I think my complaints about the last one, or not really complaints, but just kind of warnings about the last one, is this should not be your main self-defense tool. If you can't carry fixed blades, that's one thing, but I think fixed blades are kind of the way to go for a primary self-defense tool, if you can't carry a gun or like as a backup option for like weapon retention. But I think this could do the job if you're in an area where you can't carry a fixed blade and this is maybe really your only option. Or if you just are kind of getting into this world of kind of this pikal style blade and you want to know what it's all about, but you kind of collect fidgety knives, like something like this, and you want something with the premium materials and the premium feel and look. I think this can kind of do it for you. I think this is kind of like your gateway drug into more purpose-built tools. So I think this is really well designed. I think they did an excellent job. Shieldon did an excellent job on the machining. Everything looks really solid. I really can't find any flaws with this knife. The lockup is solid, even with bearings in the pivot there. There's absolutely no flex or wiggle any direction, vertical or horizontal. It locks up super solid. The materials are there, the design's there, and the guys that designed this knife and are working on it are really cool guys. So I'll link all their pages and everything down below. If you're interested in this knife, definitely go follow them so you can hear updates about the release. Justin, again, thank you so much, man, for sending this over. I really appreciated my time with it. Sorry it took me a little bit to make a video on this. And whoever I'm sending this to next, I apologize too. But definitely go check these guys out if you're interested in something like this. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video.